Thank you, JR. It's good to be in Sonoma, one of the great venues on the NASCAR schedule, Infineon Raceway. Teams set to prepare for race 16 in 2010. Tomorrow afternoon, it will be the Toyota Mart 350, about 45 miles north of San Francisco. And you know, when you come to this part of the country, one thing going to be consistent. It is the weather. A bit cool this morning, 58 degrees. There is a breeze, but we always see those gorgeous sunny skies. Good to have you with us for NASCAR On Speed, the first of two practice sessions here today with Kyle Petty and Wally Dallenbach. I'm Adam Alexander. Gentlemen, much different is this track now than what it will be later today. So what are the agendas for these teams?
Well, I think the guys that probably are in trouble, this is going to be an important practice. But you're right, the temperatures are much, much cooler. The cars are going to have a lot of grip. The next practice is really where they're going to be working on their car setups. But I think some of these guys are still struggling, so this is an important practice for them.
Strategy is something we always talk about, Kyle, when we come to the road courses. And a few guys like Kyle Busch and Jeff Burton, who you would have expected to qualify toward the front, did not. So do they start working on strategy for tomorrow right now?
I think whether you lead or not, you start working on strategy right off the bat. But these guys that are in the back, we know how hard it is to pass at a place like this. And when you look at it, track position is everything, unless you have to start in the back, and then track position makes no difference. So strategy is a big, big thing. I want to thank Frank Wilson for reminding me I'm supposed to be in the booth. I got here 2 minutes right before we went on air here. Thanks, Frank.
It wasn't even close.
I know, it wasn't even close.
So we look forward to 45 minutes on track for these teams, and one driver picking up right where he left off this year at Sonoma. Ralph Sheheen has more on Kasey Kahne.
That was last year's race winner, this year's pole sitter. Now, Kasey's going to be working on the balance of that number 9 Budweiser car. Now, not the balance of the handling, but the balance of the braking. Drivers want to have a particular feel, so they're going to be adjusting master cylinders, trying to get the feel of the brakes for Kasey right where he's most comfortable. Joining me down here in the garage area for this session will be Phil Parsons.
Thank you, Ralph. And you know, if you look at the record from last year, Marcus Ambrose started third, and he finished third, right? Pretty good day. Well, it was a little bit more than that, or a lot more than that. He blew an engine last year in the first practice session. He ran into Jimmie Johnson in this practice session, knocking our camera out of the front of his car in the process. Marcus Ambrose had to go to the back, and he fought his way back to third. He said he does not want a repeat of last year. He wants a pretty uneventful day today so he can go for that first win tomorrow. He will roll off 6th, Adam.
Phil, the one name I have heard most consistent when you talk about favorites for this race, and it didn't start here on Thursday or Friday, it started when we left Michigan a week ago, Marcus Ambrose, and for good reason. He is special when it comes to road course racing.
Yeah, he's got a great record over the last couple of years in Cup and nationwide on the road courses, and he obviously brings a lot of experience, and these guys put a lot of effort into these road course races because they know the best shot of getting Marcos's first win is going to be in a place like this.
You know, it was funny. We talked to Jamie McMurray yesterday, and he was talking about Marcos and some of the road course guys that come in, and he talked about how aggressive they are on the road course, how they attack a road course, where it takes a cup driver 3 or 4, a couple of practices to get in that rhythm before you can get aggressive, and these guys are aggressive right off the bat.
Kevin Harvick enters this weekend the point leader. He has had success on the road courses, and he was very good here in qualifying yesterday. He will start in row number 2. The 4th position is where Harvick rolls tomorrow. And he is 4th quick of the cars on track.
I mean, some of these cars look like they're sprint cars, the way they're hiking up the front wheels.
You know, we see this, and we talked about it, I think, at Pocono, and you talked about it a lot, Wally, how rigid those cars were and how rough the straightaways look. They bring that same, I guess, that same philosophy to the setup here. And when these cars do flex like that, they just carry tires everywhere. I mean, I never remember coming here, 100 years ago when I drove a car and carrying a tire. But these guys carry a left front, they carry a right front. It's incredible.
Well, where you carry a tire is up over the hill because we would hammer that curb so hard.
Exactly.
We carry the whole car. But no, like you say, when you're going around a flat corner and you're hiking up the inside tire, but it works.
Jimmie Johnson 11th, and Jamie McMurray.
Wow.
A little too aggressive into the corner?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Wow. No. He made it work.
Okay, forget carrying a tire. He carried the whole right side. He carried the whole right side right there.
That's one thing you got, you know, that's a great example of a inside or, you know, right front tire locking up. You guys, it's really important to get your brake bias balanced here, because if you do that a couple of times, you're going to flat spot a tire. You flat spot a tire because you're dragging it because the brakes lock up. It's going to hurt the car the way it handles. So a lot of these guys, I'm sure, are trying to get their brakes dialed in, because it's very, very important to have that balance.
And the other thing is, when you brake like that, and we heard, you know, talking about, you miss your marks. And when you miss your marks, you saw him miss his mark getting in the corner, hit the curb, and how far it sent him off in the next corner too. And that's one thing a road course is. And you're, I mean, you won championships, you won 100 races doing this stuff, and you know how technical these courses are.
Yeah, you're right, Kyle. You have to hit your marks. And like you say, he drug that brake maybe a second too long, and it threw him way into that corner. And that's when you just say, all right, here you do a Hail Mary.
McMurray starts 25th here tomorrow. 35 cars have been on track, the quickest of them all. The man we've talked about off the top, Marcus Ambrose. You better be ready to two-step when you come to the road courses. This is a look at Casey Kane. Tonight, the Rolex Sports Car Series slams into Mid-Ohio, where the GT points battle is as good as it gets. Don't miss the Rolex Sports Car Series live from Mid-Ohio. Tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Speed.
This is out the front of Montoya's car. Bumper cam, which is a very cool, it's a very good shot.
Wow.
Especially when you're following somebody and in traffic. I mean, you see how close these guys are to each other. This is coming across the start-finish line, going up into turn 1.
He's on a chip right there.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing.
That is a cool shot.
This is always a good part. When you go down here, it loads the front end and it rotates right there. And this is a corner that you were talking about, just carrying your right front wheel straight up off that. Then it used to, we would turn in right there. Then they changed the racetrack down to here. And this is a pass zone. There's that place to pass, and right here is another pass zone. 2 of the passing zones on this racetrack come back to back.
The first turn 4, this being turn 7, and it leads to the S's.
And this is when you're awfully busy down through here. You're trying to make the car do something it doesn't want to do, and that's transition from one direction to the other.
And this is a fast part of the racetrack right here. I think you don't get the feel when you're watching this race how fast this part is. You got to get through this corner, because this is the final passing zone right here to be able to pull out on somebody and take their line away from them.
You're exactly right. That corner right there, I think, is one of the most.
He missed this corner. Look, he missed it.
Yeah. But that last corner leading into this one is probably the most important corner on the racetrack, because you're setting a guy up. You've got to get through there and get right on somebody's bumper in order to outbrake them. If you're not working through there, you're going to be in trouble.
The NASCAR Nationwide Series in action today, also on a road course at Elkhart Lake. Carl Edwards on the pole there. His 99 car here sitting idle in the garage, Ralph.
Adam, that's what we were going to talk about. Carl's not here. He's on the pole at Road America. Nothing is wrong with this machine. Bill Elliott's going to be in it in a few moments once he gets done testing his car. They're very comfortable with this car. They just want Bill to get in it, shake it down a little bit, make sure nothing's wrong.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times like that, when a driver, obviously Carl and this crew's comfortable enough that they think they know where they're at, no matter where the racetrack's going to change or what it's going to do. But at the same time, there's so many things that you do to a road course car, whether it be brakes or transmissions or coolers or whatever that means, that you just got to make sure that nothing's leaking. And sometimes they just want a driver to go out and run that car.
Kevin Conway has come to a stop on track. Let's go to Phil Parsons.
Adam, Frankie Kerr, crew chief for Marcus Ambrose, told his driver just as he went out for practice, be careful, there's a half a dozen cars out there that they think are going to run out of fuel intentionally in order to see how much fuel that their fuel cell will pick up. We talk about how fuel strategy plays into this race. Track position, it all goes back to fuel mileage and how quick you can get in your window to get to the end. Guys out here trying to figure out exactly where that window is.
That's probably what Conway's situation is.
Yeah.
In fuel mileage here and strategy at a racetrack
caution from the 34 on the back straightaway there.
like Sonoma, and we heard Phil talking about drivers running their car out of gas. Before that, we saw Kevin Conway stopped. Marry those two together. That's the reason we have got a caution in our first practice of the day. 12 minutes into a 45-minute session here at Sonoma. Tomorrow, NASCAR Race Day uncorks some Father's Day fun in the wine country of Sonoma, California. As the Candyman Kyle Busch joins us live, and Jeff Gordon discusses his drive for a 5th title. NASCAR Race Day, built by the Home Depot, live from Infineon tomorrow at 12 Eastern, only on Speed. Kevin Conway has had his car pushed back to the garage after running out of fuel. The green flag back out on this practice session. And now we put the green flag in the air for Lindsay Zarniak and Larry McReynolds. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Adam. Larry, we have talked so much about fuel mileage the past couple of races we've had, but what's up with fuel mileage here?
Well, this is really a different animal because this is a very short race, 110 laps. And what you have to do, you have to run the race backwards. If you can run 40 laps on fuel, which is close to what they can run, you know you want to be on pit road by lap 70. You don't want to go past lap 70. And then you know also you need to be on pit road at lap 30 for your first stop. But Lindsay, for the first time here, we know we go into this race with the possibility of 3 green, white checkers. So I think you've got to stretch those numbers a little bit on the first stop and second stop just to cover yourself, because I promise you, if we have 1 green, white checkered, we probably will have 3.
And you are a man of your word. Speaking of pit road, we throw it now to Ralph Shaheen.
Lindsay, the hood is up here on Jeff Gordon's number 24, and the guys are doing a lot of talk over and around this engine bay. On the scanners, they've discussed engine possibilities, they've discussed fuel possibilities, and ignition possibilities. Those possibilities are all about something being wrong. They're not sure where it is or exactly what it is, but Jeff has spent a lot of time talking over with his engineers, and they're taking a look at this number 24 real close. They're not sure what's wrong with it, but it's not to Jeff's liking right now, guys.
Boy, that's not good.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things on a road course like this. You know, you're talking fuel pumps, and we've changed the fuel pump. We talked about the fuel pumps last week. You're talking about float heights and the float bowls, the carburetor, and how the carburetor is adjusted when it slings one way, the centrifugal force of the fuel being pitched around in the carburetor. But, you know, most of these guys have worked all this stuff out through the years of coming back here. So the old standby stuff that it used to be, when something happens, it totally throws you off. You panic because you go to all the new stuff you've added to the car. So there's nothing worse than having a gremlin in a car at a road course, because you can go out and run 2 laps, it's not there, and all of a sudden it's there, and it will drive you crazy.
Denny Hamlin's not been hearing any gremlins at all lately. Kyle, you said it last week, quoting Denny, all we do is win, and he continued the theme, running away with it at Michigan a week ago. That on the heels of his victory at Pocono. A 5-time winner in 2010 is Denny Hamlin. He's 7th quick in this session. And here's Robbie Gordon.
Yeah, I think Robbie was obviously hoping for a little bit better qualifying run than he had, but they had a little bit of problems with brakes in practice yesterday. And here's a great shot of Robbie's feet in action. And we talk about left foot braking, and Robbie's obviously a left foot braker.
And this
1760.
And this is strange. You know, that's a pretty decent lap. But you look at this, look how far away the brake pedal is from the accelerator. When we all learned to drive these cars, the brake pedal was right on top of the accelerator because you had to heel and toe. Now that these guys don't use the clutch, they just blip the accelerator for an upshift or a downshift when you see them do this. It's a totally different way of driving a road course car. You know, you talk about Formula One and paddle shift, you talk about sports cars and the paddle shift and stuff. We still have to shift manually, you know, with the shifter, but at the same time, it's just totally different.
But if you watch when he's shifting, he's never touching the clutch.
Never.
You know, I mean, you know, you can upshift and downshift these cars now without going to the clutch. His left foot does not ever leave that brake pedal. And the only time you're going to use the clutch is if you're, you know, coming in for a pit stop.
Yeah, and this is where these young drivers really, they learn to drive this way. So they're really good at it. When I learned to drive, once again, with a horse and buggy, then I had to heel and toe, and I never could get used to this. I couldn't get my foot my rhythm on where to brake, where to shift,
Yeah,
where to do everything, was all still heel and toe. And we only ran 2 races a year, so for some of these guys that are older, it's hard to break that habit. It's a habit, and driving is all about being in a rhythm.
Yeah.
Phil, it is always easier to learn something right the first time instead of to learn the wrong way and try to go back and right that wrong, isn't it?
It sure is, Adam. But Kyle, as you were talking, you and I came up when we had to use a T10 transmission with synchronizer rings, and that's why we had to do the heel and toe. When the first transmission came, which I believe was a Jericho with a dog rings, where you didn't have to use the clutch, it was like a new lease on life for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, a T10 was kind of like driving a Thomas Brothers bus, school bus. Okay, you almost had to double clutch with a T10 to get the thing. You had to push the clutch, bring it to neutral, almost push the clutch again to take it into gear. But those things were tough, man, because they survived a lot of us guys who had no clue how to shift.
Now let's go down to Larry McReynolds.
All right, guys, y'all were talking about fuel spilling over, which is a real challenge at a road course because you're going left and you're going right. What these guys have to do is really work, I think Kyle mentioned it, on setting the float level. You want it just where there's fuel at the top of the float bowl. That way you won't get the fuel spilling over. Let me show you something else that these guys are working for. Yesterday in qualifying, when you nailed the throttle, you wanted wide open. You had fresh tires, you had a lot of grip. But what a lot of them were doing this morning with the carburetor is putting a progressive linkage on the carburetor. What they would do, it will not just, barely goes wide open. It don't go wide open, what we call a one-to-one. Now just to expand on also what Phil was talking about back here at the transmission, if you notice, it's straight cut gears with none of the synchronizer rings that Phil was talking about. That's the reason you can match the RPMs and you can just bang these gears upshifting and downshifting.
And that was a really good shot. That was a really good shot of the carburetor. You saw the black plastic piece, which is a float. That when we first started coming to road courses, and the mechanics and the engine builders like Robert Yates and Leonard Wood and the Hendricks organization, they experimented with different types of floats, really, whether it was a copper float, whether it was a plastic float, to make sure that it didn't get slung around inside there. There's a lot of technology has come to these cars because of road racing.
Because it used to be, when we come here, you always were messing with the carburetor. Was always starving for fuel, either going up the hill to the left or going, I mean, it was always something.
Yeah, you got to figure on an oval, it's just level and then it's pitched to the side. Up here, we're running uphill, downhill, left and right, and it's pitched. No other road course that we ran. Watkins Glen, you never seem to have the issues that you would have out here at Infineon.
I remember changing a carburetor during the race under caution, which you can do, because we never lost a lap. But they completely changed the whole carburetor because it wouldn't run.
Matthias Ekstrom, the latest new face in that Red Bull number 83, tested with his team at VIR a month or so ago, up to speed in an hour. They liked what they saw, elected to put him in the race car here as he slides into the corner. He replaces Casey Mears, who had replaced Brian Vickers. And next week it will be Reed Sorensen who gets his turn to wheel this car.
And you know, that's what happens when you have a driver, when your main driver, Vickers, has to go somewhere else. You know, you see guys all the time when a driver steps aside, they'll try multiple drivers trying to get the team back on track. And for whatever reason, you know, Casey had 3 or 4 races, now we'll put a few other guys in it. This is Bill Elliott in an unfamiliar car.
Elliott actually going to be in the 99, as Ralph pointed out earlier. He will also get behind the wheel for Paul Menard, who is not here today. He also is in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Actually, he's already shaken down to 98.
Oh, to be Bill Elliott today and get to drive half the field.
What the heck, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's cool because, you know, I think that shows the tremendous amount of respect that these guys have for Bill Elliott as a driver. To say, come drive my car, tell me what you think. Do you think we're solid? Do you think we're safe? Do you think we're okay? And Bill's job is not to go out and set a qualifying lap in this thing. It's just to get it around the racetrack, get some laps on it so the team can work on the brakes, change the valve springs, work on the transmissions, whatever they need to do, because the regular driver's not here.
And as we talked about, Brad Keselowski, the Nationwide Series point leader, also in Wisconsin, his teammate Kurt Busch shaking down the 12 car. Montoya won here in 07. He's chatting things over with the crew. Sprint brings you an inside look at what is happening now inside the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. For more NASCAR stats, in-car audio, and live race radio, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile at sprint.com/speed. On board with Marcus Ambrose, quickest in this practice session. 2 markers behind him. A.J. Allmendinger is third. Phil?
I just talked to AJ a moment ago, and I said, you're third on the board. He said, yeah, but the car's not that good. How can that be?
Well, you know, we're just still working on a lot of rear grip right now. I think we put up a pretty good lap there, but I think we're falling off a little bit too much. We were in a little bit of traffic, but car just feel like we just need to keep working on rear grip. It's a problem. Roush Yates built so much horsepower, can't get into the racetrack, so we'll keep working on the Insignia Best Buy Ford. It's getting better. We're a lot better than we were yesterday. So we'll just keep working on it, and hopefully we can keep getting it better.
I heard both you and David Reagan with another Ford complain about a little bit of a stumble off the slow corners.
Yeah, we're just working a little bit of carburation thing, just knowing how slick the track's gonna be tomorrow, trying to help all we can with the right foot just to ease the throttle down, not spin the tires up as much. So the guys do an awesome job on the engines. It was a new carburetor, so they'll get it figured out. Not too worried about that, and we'll be good to go.
All right, AJ, thank you. AJ finished 7th here last year, Adam.
In fact, Phil, all 3 drivers a year ago out of the Richard Petty Motorsports stables finishing inside the top 10. Casey Kane leading the way with his first ever road course victory, and Casey starting on the pole here tomorrow, trying to get Ford their first win of 2010. And
That's going to be the biggest issue, I believe, on Sunday is the forward bite, because, and I kind of knew this was coming, because when you hear guys talking about problems with forward bite at Michigan and Pocono and places like that, you know it's going to be a real big issue here on Sunday. And I think that's what these guys really have to concentrate on, is getting the drive off the corners to where they're not spinning the tires and they're not loose on the gas, and that's going to be a struggle.
And you know, and you're a road racer. It's a different philosophy from an oval to a road course. And an oval is, how deep can I drive into the corner? A road course is, how quick can I get to the gas and get off the corner? And when you're fighting those forward bite issues, that's huge.
Yeah. Yep. What's going on down there, Larry?
Well, I just was going to ask Wally and Kyle, you know, yesterday in qualifying, like I was talking, you've got fresh tires. You can, for the most part, get that power to the ground. But one thing that these guys may be doing, I couldn't help but think about it when A.J. Allmendinger was talking about they were having trouble with forward bite. They may put a smaller carburetor on there. You can run either an 830 or a 750. Takes a little bit of that torque and that horsepower away. And guys, you know what the other advantage to a small carburetor is, right?
Fuel mileage, Larry. But Larry, I'll tell you another thing I used to do, and I don't know if it worked, it was probably in my head, but I would slow the throttle down. I'd slow the linkage down, because you're so used to getting after the gas so hard because you're in a hurry on a road course. I used to slow it down to where, you know, when you get on the gas, it would come in slower and smoother, and that would actually help, you know, the grip off the corners, because it was doing that. Like I said, it could be all in my head. There's a lot of things in my head, Larry.
Well, and that's what I was talking about over there a while ago.
Oh, we got trouble down here, headed toward 11. Sam Hornish Jr. spins around.
Yeah, he's in the wall pretty hard over there.
That is pretty hard. And that's the corner that we were talking about. That's the corner we were talking about earlier, that Wally, that you pointed out, that said you've got to get off that corner to make a move on somebody. But when you get through that corner wrong or hit that curbing and you get out in that dirt that's to the left side of the racetrack as you're coming back our way, it's to his right now. Man, how many cars have we seen in that tire barriers through the years?
And you can see, if you get off, there's no room to save it. If you get off and you get in that grass, you're going to hit something.
See, he's turned back to the left right there.
Yeah,
he's already sideways. And then when this thing drops out, see how the wall comes back in him? There's not enough room for you to spin and stop this car. We've seen cars from David Ruderman a couple of years ago up on those tires. So many drivers have been up on those tires. He did a good job of getting it this
in the gas.
Just nowhere to go.
To getting it this far down, he didn't get into the tires. He got into the wall. I'm not sure I've seen anybody get in the wall that far down in a long time. But I mean, he fought the thing all the way. But once you get in that dirt, there's nothing.
One more look at Sam Hornish Jr.
Yeah, it's even if he would have stood on the gas, I'm not sure he would have missed that wall completely. But
second caution we've had in this practice session, the first for Kevin Conway, running out of fuel. Sam Hornish Jr. in the wall just shy of turn 11, 30 minutes into the session. For the first time, Barrett Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auctions on speed, comes to Orange County. Hundreds of restored and rare cars will be auctioned off to the highest bidder. Catch 3 days of live coverage with expert commentary. Barrett Jackson, Orange County, kicks off next Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Speed.
And that's going to be huge. That's the first time they're at Orange County. And Wally, you know a lot about those old cars and all that stuff. They do so much for charity, and that's going to be a big deal and a big part of some of that stuff. So tune in and watch that stuff, man, because that's pretty cool.
Cars are rolling again after.
Wish I had some moolah to buy some of that stuff, but I don't.
We could all go in together, maybe.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
So we look at turn 11.
And watch Bill Elliott here. This is the corner Wally and I were talking about. Watch his eyes. Watch his eyes. He comes through that corner, checks the mirror. Okay, he comes down to the hairpin here. He downshifts. And watch this. He'll check the mirror one more time because that's a passing zone. We talk so much during this, and this was great that Elliott had his visor up while he's running. You talk so much as a driver as we're watching these guys. We're watching their feet. We're watching their hands. We're watching them shift. And you forget. You've got to watch what's going on behind you. On an oval, you don't check all the time. You just hammer off in the corner. You know that guy's 20 car lengths behind you. When you come through that corner, if you mess up, that guy's going to pick up 4 or 5 car lengths. So it's amazing when this race is over with, or it's amazing what you have to do inside the car. And we don't get a chance to see the driver's eyes a lot, but that was a good shot from Bill Elliott's eyes.
Very good point you make, Kyle, that it's more than just looking out the windshield when you come to a road course. And speaking of turn 11, we ride with Jamie McMurray here.
You got to know who you're going to block.
That's exactly right. That's the point.
Well, that's a driver's mentality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You got to know, am I going to turn right and just run him over into those tires?
And I'm guessing you approach the corner a little bit differently, too, based on who is behind you, because you know those driving styles of other drivers.
Well, the thing is, too, if you know somebody's coming and they're coming hard, you can't block them because you got to look to see what the closing rate is. But if you think you get through that corner and the guy behind you is going through the same speed, and he may feint to the right, you're going to go ahead and make the block. But if somebody's got a good run, you don't want to make that block because there's going to be a wreck. There's a good driver shot here, Clint Boyer, and just gives you, gives you a really good shot and idea how much these guys work on a road course. It's a busy place. You're constantly working the wheel, the shifter, the pedals. It's like I said, you're always doing something around this place.
We talk about it watching the ovals, and you'll say that guy's really getting busy in a car. You know what I mean? I mean, he's left, he's right. When it's happening here, it's just standard procedure. You can't tell whether a car is loose or pushing, or whether it's got grip or what. You just can't. You just about can't tell because these guys are so busy.
I was down at the garage yesterday, and we talked earlier about Matthias Ekstrom making his Sprint Cup debut this weekend, and they actually had a map of the track on his steering wheel. And Wally had pointed out to me, Kyle, that's not as much for him to understand where he's going and how to get there, but to help him relay information about the chassis and where it's doing what, because as a driver, I'm sure you lose track in your first trip.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out where you're at because it's, I got to tell you something. I grew up racing at Riverside. That was the first road course I ever ran. So we were just talking about the hairpin down here, which is turn 11. At Riverside, it was turn 9. Okay, so to me, that's turn 9. When you go to Watkins Glen, the far corner down there, that's turn 9. I just never got those out of my head. I'm an idiot. But I think when you look at it, it is to be able to tell the driver or tell the crew chief, this is where I'm loose, this is where I'm tight, this is where I need grip, this is where I need to turn better, because it's hard to relay that.
Brad Keselowski not here today. He's the Nationwide Series point leader. He's off at Road America, so his teammate Kurt Busch behind the wheel of the 12th car. And in fact, this is the only car that is yet to officially log a lap in practice. 42 cars have taken time, and this will be the first that the 12th car crosses the start-finish line. As you see Harvick and Stewart.
Now, one thing, Kyle, you notice on some of these cars, you look at Harvick's wheel. That's a much smaller wheel. That's a Momo steering wheel. That's a much smaller wheel than these guys will use on the ovals. And what they do is, and actually Stewart's wheel looks a little bit bigger than the Momo. But what they do here is they run a smaller wheel because they run a faster steering box. And it just helps you turn left to right quicker. Because those big wheels, it takes a lot to turn those things on a road course. I mean, it's a lot of swing.
What's amazing about them is the different. I always love to watch the in-car camera shots because you get a feel for where the driver's comfort level is on where he sets in the car. You see Tony's got the wheel right down in his lap. He's got his hands way up on top of the wheel almost. You look at Harvick, even though it's a little bit different angle, Harvick's almost 10 and 2. You know what I mean? And his wheel's setting a little bit farther away from him. He's got the smaller wheel. But it's really funny. I mean, we were talking about Bill Elliott going from car to car. That's a hard thing to do, is get in somebody else's car and feel comfortable enough to go out and run 100 and some miles an hour on a road course.
And I think Robbie Gordon was really the first guy that really started experimenting with that small steering wheel. I believe it was here at Sonoma he did it for the first time.
Jeff Burton makes his 500th consecutive Sprint Cup start here tomorrow afternoon. Impressive number for the series veteran. And he'll start deep in the field. 30th is where he qualified, although he is second in this practice. And one of the reasons why he was not as good as he wanted to be yesterday, he was the first car out in qualifying yesterday afternoon.
And that was a good shot right there. You saw that car, he was turning the wheel left, but the car was just digging forward. That's a push right there. But at the same time, you see these guys, as the tires get more and more worn, they use more and more of the curb, because you've got to cut in earlier. You've got to make sure that you've got enough room to escape that corner.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the fuel mileage that we've discussed so much throughout this practice session, and we know it will be a factor here tomorrow, but you also talked about the lack of grip, the importance of having 4 fresh tires. Does the lack of grip change strategy as far as maybe coming later and getting those tires and taking out the fuel mileage element a little bit?
I don't think the tires are going to save you that long. You may get a couple laps out of a set of tires, but if the temperatures are warm during the race, it's not going to be that big of a difference. And you're going to hear guys talking about saving fuel. And again, you know, it's so hard to do when you're racing on a road course, is to save fuel. And there you see David Reagan. That's a backup car. Actually, he's putting some pretty good numbers up right now in the backup car. But you're going to see a lot of different strategies. Like Kyle mentioned earlier, some of these guys in the back have to play that because they didn't qualify well. Track position is everything on a place like this, so you got to put yourself up there in the top 5 or 10.
Marcus Ambrose has turned as many laps as anybody. He is quickest in the opening practice session of the day.
Welcome back to Sprint Cup practice here on Speed. Larry McReynolds, we talk so much about fuel, but something that is so critical is these guys finding out how much fuel they pick up.
Yeah, we've been hammering it to death about fuel mileage, whether it's the size of the carburetor, the linkage, just making sure that the engine tuner's done everything he can to help you, but you also have to know exactly how many ounces of fuel that fuel cell's picking up. Yeah, it's designed to pick up 19.5 gallons. Your hope is maybe it picks up a little bit more than that. That's pretty critical too. And we may see someone even in that next practice make a fuel run it out of fuel to see exactly how much it picks up when they go to the fuel pumps.
Yeah, how do they diagnose that?
The only way you can do it is pretty much run it out. NASCAR's not real happy about cars running out of fuel on the racetrack during practice. Go to the fuel pumps, fill it up, look at the pump reading. That tells you exactly how much it holds.
Another question for you I have is spotters. How critical are your spotters here at this track, and what's the best way that a team can prepare for that to give them an edge?
Well, I've been up on the spotter stand here, and trust me, the cars look like little bitty ants running around because you're so far up there. But I know for a fact, even in this practice session, that the 48 team, Jimmy Johnson, they put spotters over here, over in that turn 10 area where we saw Sam Horner's wreck, because it's pretty much a blind side to the spotter up there.
All right, we'll send it back right now to the guys that are up in the booth with a pretty good view of their own.
A number of different drivers will use at least 2 spotters here tomorrow to help, as Larry pointed out, heading down the S's through turn 10 and down into turn 11. Saw Martin Truex Jr. on track. He's currently 5th, and there you see Bobby Labonte in the garage following this.
Yeah, if you watch Bobby when he goes in, he gets in here, wheel hops the car. You can see the left rear jumping up and down. Got a little bit too much rear brake in that. Turn 11 is notorious for guys wheel hopping because you get in there so deep and you jam on the brakes, and if you have too much rear brake, it's just like the rear wheels come off the ground. It's like being on 2 pogo sticks.
Labonte, a great qualifying run here yesterday. 8th is where he will start. Jimmy Johnson, 4th quick in this practice. 1 minute remaining before we will see the red and black flags indicating practice 1 is complete.
been a pretty clean practice, to be honest with you. I mean, we've had guys run out of gas. We've had a couple of spins. But, you know, I remember coming out here on so many different occasions, and you get an hour practice and you get 20 minutes on track because they were cleaning up everything. I think the safety crews, the track's better, everything's better, and you get a lot more practice. But I'm going to tell you what, you can wear a car out here if you practice too much because it's hard on a car.
Yeah, it really is. You hit those curves like that, you know they're just killing the shocks and everything else that's attached to these wheels.
Dale Earnhardt Jr., nice jump in the points last week. Solid run at Michigan. 22nd quick in this practice. Happy hour still to come later today. And now we have our third caution of the afternoon. Actually, it's the red and black flag signifying this practice is over. Marcus Ambrose, the best of them all in the first session of the day. Jeff Burton, A.J. Allmendinger, Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr. the top 10. Kyle Busch starts deep in the field tomorrow. He's 11th in this practice. Jeff Gordon finished in the 21st position. We heard Ralph talk about the problems they faced earlier today. One last time to dial in these cars later today. You can see Happy Hour right here on Speed. Now we send it across a break to John Roberts and NASCAR Live. Thank you for being with us for NASCAR on Speed from Sonoma.